This is Groove Talk with Froggy Style.
Welcome to another episode of Groove Talk, everybody. On this episode, I am joined by Jenna and Jacob, and they are with Slam Festival.
Hey guys.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for being on the show. So I guess just to start off, why don't you kind of tell us how you're involved with the festival?
Well, this is going to be our third year now with the festival, and it actually pretty much started with Jacob. So why don't you give a little history for us first, Jacob, and then I'll roll in.
Yeah, as far as kind of the evolution or where we've come from is we started surfing here in Calgary in 2005. So that's when the Alberta River Surfing Association was formed. From there, in 2006, we had our first event. It was a surf slam in the Kananaskis, which we dubbed Slam the Can. And that was the very first river surf festival event, anything going on outside of Munich, Germany. That's kind of the capital city for river surfing. They've been surfing there for close to 50 years there, so quite impressive, and they've got all these events. From there, we've just were camping out in the woods for 10 years and tried to pull out as many DJs and bands that would come out and play for us. And then when Jenna came on, we were setting our sights very high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And kind of pitched this idea on the table, and Jenna's like, yep, I could do that.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, so I had attended one of the last, well, I shouldn't say one of the last Slam the Cans, because we've run two as well too, but Slam 10 I think it was. Mm-hmm. So a couple of years ago, and that was my first experience, kind of as a sponsor, from the brand standpoint. I was really new to the community then, but also just as a participant, as a visitor, as a community member, I guess. And so I thought it was really interesting, and I work in the surf industry, so being inland and seeing the opportunity for surf culture, I had to wonder, what kind of other opportunities exist there from a professional standpoint. And then, so as I spent a little bit more time with the community, I just got to know the people, and it's really amazing, super welcoming. And so when Jacob decided to get some people together to throw out this idea of expanding the festival into not just the surfing, but maybe adding in a little bit more culture, so where we went to with the music, visual arts, and then also skateboarding, I had offered to try and help grow that with them. So now we have become the directors of this new version of Slam Calgary.
Awesome. For people who might not know, even though it seems kind of self-explanatory, maybe just explain what river surfing kind of entails and what it is, I guess.
Well, it's not as self-explanatory as you'd think.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, we've been doing it for, almost 15 years now, and you still get the question of what is that?
Yeah.
The two big things, people always ask me if I'm kind of going down the river, so it's like stand-up paddleboarding, or they assume that there's a rope involved, like we're just tied off on a bridge or something like that. Both kind of surfing in a river, but in the true sense of river surfing, we've found a standing wave, sort of like something you'd see whitewater rafters. When the boat goes up really high, that's a big standing tall rapid. And then we take just a plain everyday ocean surfboard and paddle out and surf that wave.
So I guess what got you involved with river surfing?
So started surfing in the ocean, like most of our community. It's gotten to the point now that we've seen enough growth that we're getting people directly into river surfing here in Calgary, and their first experience with a surfboard even is right here in Calgary, which is amazing.
Pretty cool.
But the roots of our community is definitely a very international one. A lot of people will learn, myself, I learned in Australia, lots of people learned in California or Hawaii, but we also have lots of people coming into Calgary from other places like New Zealand, Chile, Spain, that kind of thing. And they kind of bring that surf vibe and those surf roots into our community, which is really cool. I think Calgary needs a little bit more of it. And the biggest thing for me is between going on surf trips, because I was saving up all my money, scratching together as much as I could to get on a plane and go somewhere. And I've surfed a lot of amazing breaks in a lot of tropical beachy places that I love. I love the sand between my toes. But the more I found the community in Calgary as welcoming as it is, that was sort of the missing piece. Just showing up in a random place and being kind of the outsider. It's kind of hard to like just paddle up to that break and feel comfortable out there. Whereas here in Calgary, I've never seen anyone, or I've never seen a community that's so welcoming. Mm-hmm. Everyone that comes out is just, welcomed with open arms, and everyone's so interested, like, how did you find out about this? Yeah. And where have you surfed before? And tell me all the details on all the surf breaks that you know. So for me, it was really that community aspect of kind of this outsider surf mentality here in Calgary.
That definitely makes sense.
Yeah. So I guess what just made you decide to pursue this in Calgary and like make slam?
Well, like I've been here for quite a while. Like, why don't you take this one, Jenna? Like, because I'm always interested in like kind of what what brings people in, sort of.
I think so. You kind of touched on it before, where people just kind of come across this phenomenon where we can surf downtown. Like when we're surfing at 10th Street, there right downtown. People are going across the bridge. Like as soon as someone's in the water, people are stopping, taking photos. It's like this very odd thing. It's super unique, and we love that. And so I think from the outside standpoint, it's such a fringe offering for a community like this to be able to surf. It's such an ocean-related sport. And myself, before this was living in Vancouver, and I surfed quite a bit in the Pacific Northwest and mostly Oregon. And I would do surf trips on the weekends and everything, and I'll be honest, I had my concerns about moving inland. I was given a job opportunity, and so I ended up taking it, with only having been to Calgary 2 times previous to that 10 years ago. 15 years ago now. And so I wasn't really sure what to expect, and so a year later when I see that you can surf in the city, it's kind of this really interesting blessing. It's so cool. So I think like for the people that come and visit us, I shouldn't even say just visitors, but the people that live here, I think it really is an interesting draw for them because it's such a unique opportunity. And for the most part, like Jacob was saying, now most people's first surf opportunity is to surf in the river here, where people think about dream vacations. How often do we get to travel? It's very expensive. It takes a lot of time, and we all have lives. And so suddenly we're making a reality out of these bucket list items that people have, which is, maybe they should still surf in the ocean. I wouldn't say don't do that, but to have that opportunity to feel what it is like to surf is really interesting, and we're helping offer that in the space that we have now. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I first became aware of river surfing, I think it was 2 summers ago now, and it was because of slam and all that. Cool. And one of the events you guys threw, and I had no idea the river surfing was even a thing. So
awesome. That's still the case all the time.
Yeah. So I guess is there any like infrastructure involved that needs to be put in for river surfing, or do you just kind of find like natural points in the river, or how does that work?
The roots of it is finding those natural standing waves that just occur naturally.
Yeah.
There's usually a human element in some way. The 10th Street wave that's happening here, you can see when you're surfing in the water these old bridge pilings. And there used to be a mill down in Eau Claire, and then they would channel the logs kind of down there. And they had some kind of dock. So you would call it a natural feature because no one's purposely built a wave there. But at some point, humans had gotten in the river, and I just make comment to it because it's actually quite rare to find a really beautiful natural standing wave. Mm-hmm. Like we look for these often, so a lot of times you'll see them in spring runoff when the snow is melting or you get lots of rain. The rivers pick up and they're going over kind of random rocks and creating waves. So there's that. But what has come out of that now in sort of the last 10 years is this idea of wave building. And that's really the heart of everything we're doing with Slam. Slam the Can started as raising awareness and celebration of surf culture, but also putting together the means so that we could build our own surf wave in the Kananaskis. So in 2014, we did that very thing. Before that, we were surfing some kayak features that were out there. This kayaker community were out there since like the 80s and building world-class features out there for kayaking. And we just kind of stumbled upon it and started surfing these things. Hey, look at that. And then we started getting organized and doing everything it takes to build a wave out there. So our president, Neil Eggsgard, he's very involved around the world in this idea of wave building. And after Slam 10, that was kind of our big hurrah for Slam the Can, our 10th year out there. And we sort of shifted our focus. And now with Slam Calgary being right downtown in the 10th Street Wave, the goal there is to build a world-class surf wave right here in Calgary. This project would be the first of its kind in the world. Right now, Munich, Germany, as I mentioned before, is kind of the capital city of river surfing. They have a really strong inland surf community, thousands of surfers, and even more spectators, like hundreds of thousands of people. If you look at any of the tourism that's kind of targeting Munich, Germany, you always see some river surfing and some surfers in that, which is really cool. And for Slam Calgary to be right down there and show that opportunity, we're going to have a wave that's even better than the one in Munich, Germany. So take that.
So there, but thanks for the idea.
So I guess, how have you seen river surfing culture kind of grow over the years, and like with the introduction of like Slam Calgary and stuff?
I just have to wonder if it was if it was because of Slam Calgary or if it was already happening. It's hard to tell because it kind of happened at the same time. I moved here 5 years ago, and I can still remember. So this is like a pretty short period of time and the whole spectrum of things. And I would have been like, I think I started surfing year 2, so we'll say 4 years ago. There would have been pretty much like the same 15 people in the water all the time, and it was pretty quiet. Next year, a couple more people, and now almost every time I go, I'm seeing new faces, which is amazing. And so there's, I think it was really, there's only one place to surf, downtown Calgary. So when people see that and they get curious and they go, well, that and the lessons, actually, I should say too. So one of our community members started Outlier, and they offer lessons and rentals, and it's really good to go about that way, especially if you have no surf experience, because, and even if you have surfed, because the safety is a little bit different in the river, and you really can't rent equipment anywhere anyway. So I would say also with the combination of the lessons being available, which they were just getting rolling, I guess, before, it has really expanded the community quite quickly. And the festival itself, it's really interesting. I would like to say it helps the surfing community specifically, but I think our purpose really grows it a lot further than that, and in a way doesn't really focus on river surfing. I don't want to say that necessarily, but the wave can only really do so much in terms of how we're building our culture out. Okay.
So what is it about kind of surf culture that you think goes so well with like music? Because, you know, it's in other sports, there's not like that musical element to it, but like stuff like surfing and like skateboarding, it seems like it's tied really closely with music. So why do you think that is?
I'm not really sure why it is. All I know is that I've been working in like the board sport industry for, I don't know, 12, 15 years or something like that now, a while. And it's, especially on the brand standpoint, lifestyle marketing is incredibly important. And for the same reason that we expanded our festival, it's not really just about the sport itself, it's about the lifestyle that it comes with it. So on like maybe a smaller example, say there's a family of 5 and that one person surfs, the whole family is going to want to come to the park and hang out with that one person surfs, where they can all enjoy themselves. So I definitely think that music is one of those pieces that is the glue that holds everything together. And we always try and expand our genre offerings, because, you know, there's so many different palettes out there, and we only have so much stage space, but it's definitely a goal of ours to be able to mix throughout the genres from year to year, or at least in 1 year have a couple of genres in there so that we can appeal to more people.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, the first slam event that I heard of. It was primarily like rock and punk and stuff like that. But I actually went to Slam the Can last year, the Bass Best one, and that was like electronic music and
totally different, right?
Totally different. So it was really cool, and like I actually got to see the river surfing and the river surfing competition, and
awesome.
I just had no idea. It was just it was so cool.
That wave's really pretty out there too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's
just
gorgeous.
spending the morning out there, just watching people surf. It was amazing.
Yeah, we love that.
It's not something that you think that you can get in the mountains, you know.
100%. It's we really like to play that up all the time, like the mountains and the waves, and one of our events is Rocky Mountain luau. So it's kind of a clash of cultures right there. Yeah, so we try and play with that.
Cool.
When we're talking about culture, I think it's inside the water and out. So if you think about surf culture and the actual act of surfing, especially here in Calgary or out in the Kananaskis, there's something a little bit different, maybe special, that I've noticed here, and it's especially with river surfing, we all kind of line up and take our turn. And in the ocean, sometimes the better paddler gets the better waves because they can paddle around you and just get your wave or whatever. But in the ocean or in the river, we're all standing up and taking our turn, and that's just kind of this element where I'm saying how welcoming it is for everyone, and for us. The music and picking who's going to be on the stage this year and all that kind of stuff, we want to bring that into it as well. So having that welcoming idea and playing to different genres and playing to different crowds it's more about kind of the vibe than it is the genre of music or that kind of thing. So when we think about surf rock or the genre of surf music, something definitely comes to mind, like some Dick Dale or our local guys, the 427s. But it goes beyond that. It's how people come together and how they share that, like at the luau, just enjoying a pig roast and out in downtown Calgary and listening to some surf rock sounds pretty fun.
What's one of your favorite parts about organizing this festival?
For me, it is, on a personal, professional level, it's definitely the excitement of building something and then seeing the execution, like just watching it soar afterwards is really intense. But I also, this kind of goes from the community standpoint too. I do a lot of like the partnership building. And so the networking involved and bringing all these new people into the festival is like such an interesting experience. Just like yourself, like most of the people that I talk to for the first time, they, especially for year one, they have not heard of this. I still get that pretty often. We have some pretty big name sponsors that are really supportive of us. Now I would say about half of them or maybe more starting to hear of us, and that's really cool. It helps the process a lot when they know what I'm already talking about, but it's also, we're getting to the point that people have heard of Slam, and that's cool as well. That means we've actually reached out to a lot of different people, and that was the goal from the beginning. So that's what I love. What about you?
Yeah, for sure. Well, when you say like that idea of the vision and execution of it all, and saying like, did we actually just do this? Because it just starts with a dream too. And for us, like the bigger goal of just expanding river surfing, if you look at kind of where skateboarding was in the 60s, like before they had a skate park or anything like that, and then what's happening in Portland, and they're like making their own little skate park and stuff, they're basically pouring a concrete wave. And we're doing the same thing in the river. Like that's our goal, is to just make this whole lifestyle more accessible to people. Like especially being in an urban environment, how accessible it is. It's much the same as skateboarding. You just get a board, and here a little bit of neoprene helps.
A couple layers.
But it just like knowing that some kids downtown, if they've got nowhere else to go, the water is a little bit nicer or more welcoming than concrete in my mind. I can't do an ollie, but like put me in the water and I'm splashing around and having a great time.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like making that, like just surfing and surf culture in general, making it more accessible. And even all of our skateboarding stuff that we include in the festival, it still has that surfing roots when we try to introduce that. And yeah, it's just bringing kind of flow to the busyness and stop-start traffic of Calgary.
Awesome. Is there any Is there any major challenges to organizing like a festival like this? I assume there is.
Same answer. No, that was certainly it, and I don't think I've ever made the attempt to dive so heavily into a large project the way we did year one, and we really set our sights high, and we followed through, which is amazing. But the key challenges were definitely at the beginning was getting people to believe in our project, and that is hard with no history. Now we're definitely at a place where, you know, we've executed, we've had great experiences, we know what works, some things don't work, and where our holes are still. And so definitely, and also when we started this out, we didn't really have necessarily the same goals as we do now. We're pretty direct in where we're heading and why we run the festival. And it was still really more just a concept at the beginning. So another big challenge was really just trying to define ourselves so that we could focus in on why we're here. Yeah.
Okay.
Another thing is just being just a nonprofit society, and this association being the ones who are running this festival. I think maybe there would have been a stronger business model for some of these things, whereas ours started on a hope and a dream, and we've come really far. We're doing really great now, but it's never been about the bottom line. For us, it's more just opening up our doors of like, this is our community, the surfers here in Calgary. Like, come down and meet us and see how we like to jam out to a rock show.
Yeah, totally.
But it really is that, like, not everybody can grab a board and jump in the river, but everybody can come to Slam and have a good time.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, like I said, I had a great time last year.
That's
just
awesome.
just watching. So
Very cool.
yeah, it's just something that you just don't expect. Like
Yeah, it's interesting. And then you get like a little bit of the excitement of a sport. Like, you see the successes, like people trying tricks. You see good bails as well, and a little camaraderie. So, and then some people getting silly. And I mean, for the first time, we're going to be, you know, playing with a little bit of like that silliness at the 10th Street wave for Slam. So that's really exciting to actually bring in some of those elements that we had in the Kananaskis to have them right downtown. And there's so much space for people to watch now, where, you know, it's so much more accessible. So that's cool.
Cool. So how have the other communities received Slam? The music community, maybe the skate community. How have those communities been receptive to Slam?
I've so far had some really positive experiences. Even just when we brought what I would say is like Bass Bus and some of their community on last year, I had some really interesting conversations where they just felt the positivity of our community as well, and I really enjoyed hearing about that, because I agree, and I'm hoping that is being, you know, brought out towards everyone else that comes in and tries this experience out with us. And skate community too. We've had some really awesome support from CASE, the local skate association. And I'm trying to think of who else.
100%.
And
sure.
yeah, and 100% as well. They're always willing, and like some of the shops as well. Like, they're always willing to help us out. I think for the most part, Calgary I've seen has been a really supportive space, just in terms of growing and helping their communities in general. So even if I'm coming from a place specifically from the surf community, but I'm welcoming in another community, they just want everyone to succeed. And that's generally what I've experienced for the most part. And I'm trying to think of who else. And then music, I mean, I feel like music's easy, not to like say it's easy to get certain bands, but I mean, there's a lot of talent here.
Yeah.
So sometimes I have a hard time even like just fitting everyone into the stage. Not everyone will get a turn this year, which is unfortunate, but we get amazing bands apply and people reaching out to us. And that's another thing about, you know, people being able to find us now. We're getting, you know, bands that I love, bands that I go to see that hit us up, and I feel, you know, this like internal fandom. I'm like, oh yay, they want to be a part of this. It's so cool. So yeah, I mean, it's all been pretty easy for the most part to like cross these cultures.
Okay. Has there been any like pushback from the city at all with the wave or anything, or?
The thing about the city is they don't really say no.
Okay.
they just say like, this is what you need to work on. Like, if that, then this. There's lots of paperwork. There's lots of boxes to check. And for the most part, even all the kind of permitting bodies that we work with, from AGLC to the city, they want you to succeed as much as possible. So if they're saying, these are the security requirements like we're working on today, those are in place in our favor. Like, they just want to see us succeed. In terms of the wave build, the city's been it's been really well received. So we're kind of in a stakeholder engagement part of the project, which means we get to show off this beautiful concept drawing of what it's all going to look like and all that kind of stuff. So pretty pictures always make people smile. And then after, you see that hamster wheel running, they're like, okay, more questions come up, like what happens in a flood and these kinds of things. So it's really good. We did a feasibility study just last year during the last slam. So when that came out, it's just kind of all the answers to these hard questions. And nobody likes the hard questions, but when you have a cheat guide for all the answers, it gets a lot easier.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome to hear that the city is very supportive of this. Because I feel like people, they think of, bylaw officers or whatever city, they're like, no. They're just trying to stop the fun.
It does seem like that for sure. And I think to Jacob's point, they are just trying to make sure that we're all doing things safely so that the bad things don't happen. You can only do so much preventative maintenance, but I think the city has invested in their events a little bit in the last couple of years, and we get a liaison to coordinate with, and she's essentially our bridge, which is really helpful. So anytime we're kind of lost in that scary darkness of what city paperwork would look like, and she basically helps us connect with those people to make sure that we're finding those answers, which is amazing. It's incredibly helpful.
Awesome. Yeah. It's awesome to hear that the city is investing in stuff like this for sure. What's maybe one of the things that you're most proud of since starting and becoming involved with SLAM?
Do you have one off the top of your head? I want to think about this.
Just for the progression from Slam the Can to Slam Festival and everything that's going on, I didn't really see it possible at the time. I definitely required more people to believe in the vision than those 15 people that were in the water when you started river surfing. Surfing's kind of this little magical thing that it doesn't get shared very often. So the early days of river surfing in Calgary was don't tell anyone. They'll just come and screw it up. So just finding the right team of people to take this on. For me, that's what I'm most proud of, is just being able to grow this thing in the way that we wanted to. I think the right people came along instead of it just getting pushed into a different direction. That we're still holding true to our values that started the whole thing from the beginning.
Okay, awesome.
I think I think I got something. I mean, it's a really broad question, actually. Not to say I have a lot of things to be proud of, but I'm just kind of going through all of the things that we've done to see which ones I feel that we've executed to our best, our closest version of a vision. But I think every year we get a little closer to what we really dream to be, which is really cool. And we have some really big long-term plans for Slam Festival, which I think we set our goals really high now that I think about it. I mean, I think I already knew, but we're looking 10 years down the road already for this festival, and we are aiming for success, and we're doing our best to do that in the most natural way to our community and to the city as possible. And I think so far what I'm definitely most proud of is being able to execute something that the other people can enjoy for the most part. Yeah.
Awesome. So when you are building your team like this, is it people volunteering to come on? Or are you seeking out people, or how does that work, I guess?
Yeah, we're always seeking people out.
Okay.
For the most part, we see the surfers in the surf community being the strongest volunteer force. Mm-hmm. So day of, we've got, legions.
Yeah.
Lots of people can come and help pick up trash off the ground and make that volunteer component that's so required work. But as far as sort of the administration team, it's the surfers who see the vision and the bigger dream of what's really going down. And they get to put a little something of themselves into it so that when we are downtown surfing that amazing wave, like they can say that they've played a part in that. So
Okay.
I make all my friends help us. All of them. I feel awful, but I have a lot of really talented friends, and some of them don't surf, and we have gained some fantastic services from them, and I'm endlessly thankful to them for sure.
I mean, I do the same thing. So.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this year's event then. It's happening in early August.
Yeah, so August 9th and 10th, which is a
August 9th
Friday
and
and a Saturday this year.
How did you determine who would be playing this year's?
The musical lineup.
Yeah.
How do we do that? So it was a combination of people that had reached out to us. So kind of started there. I watch a lot of live music locally. So anytime I see bands, I'm making a short list. I have a running short list in my phone and then if someone's mentioned something, I'll write it down and then look it up later. And so it was a combination of maybe nailing in a couple of the key bands, and then there was the cycle of some people not being available as summertime, and so I did a ton of back and forth with different bands that might be out of town. We did want to focus on local bands this year, so for the most part all of our talent is local apart from two bands who we're absolutely like so stoked to have them as well. We have one band from Calgary, but they live in Vancouver now, and another band from Saskatoon. The other goal that I definitely wanted to see with the musical lineup this year is a bit more of a mix, because usually we had a bunch of different events and that gave us the opportunity to throw in kind of like different genres per event. But now that we're focusing all in one space, I was trying to figure out, how can we try and please more people with that one stage. On the Saturday, our music is going all the way from 1 till 10, so 11 till 10. So we have a lot of time for different bands, but the key for this year, I think the goal that I had in the back of my mind was upbeat, groovy, dancey, and that could be rock, it could be pop, it could be synthy. So that was really what I tried to keep in the back of my mind anytime I made a decision, is like, can you enjoy this? Can you move to this?
So how important is it to keep the event family friendly, I guess?
Really important, in my opinion. I think having the space as accessible as possible really is part of the true meaning of what our project is, because our dual goal for the festival is to be able to support the association, but also to support this community project, which is the 10th Street project, and that's a project for everybody. So yeah,
we definitely have an advantage coming at it as a nonprofit society. Mm-hmm. So how the permitting and licensing works, kind of the whole area, allows us to be family friendly. I think in terms of like shows in town, you've got an all ages show where there's like a fenced off beer gardens hiding in the corner, mm-hmm. or no beer gardens at all. It's an all ages dry show. But there hasn't been, in my mind, something that's really hit the mark of outside, but it's mixed, where, dad's got a drink, but like mom and kids are there too. He doesn't have to like leave to go to the beer gardens.
Yeah.
So we're seeing how this develops, but this is one of our biggest successes from Big Slam last year. We just rented a space outside of Cold Garden, and just how the licensing works, like families can come in. So I don't think we're necessarily targeting an all ages show or an all ages crowd. Not that they're not welcome. It's just sort of who we're targeting is kind of these people who have families and don't want to stay at home. Yeah. Just a lot of the surfers already have young kids, and for them to be like, sorry, can't go, guys, like that's never anything that we want to put on.
Yeah. Have you seen younger people getting into river surfing?
Rivers can be scary.
Yeah, not that we don't, not a ton, but yeah. We do see a handful, I would say, of younger kids with parental supervision.
Yeah.
It's developing. It's kind of on our mark as the association develops. We'll have better capacity to bring in a youth culture into it. But at this point, yeah.
Yeah, we like to consider the safety of our surfers. So
Very fair. What does the future kind of hold for Slam Festival and the whole river surfing in Calgary?
hopefully a wave.
Yeah.
Hopefully 10th Street. That's really the goal that we're working towards. We're working towards raising funds for that, and then just campaigning and getting support. As Jacob mentioned, there's a lot of different paths that we have to go through the city. We have to change some minds for sure. Although we are getting a lot of positive support, there are still questions and concerns, and those are completely valid. So we want to ease as many minds as possible and do our duty here to make sure that we're using the space responsibly and answering all those questions. So ideally a wave, and for years to come in the meantime, an awesome festival.
Yeah, for the first 3 years of Slam Festival, we were trying all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But I think we really found a format that we're happy with. Having Slam Calgary in the location that it is, and it really is this kind of child that's come birthed from the last 3 years of all the different events that we've done. We've done almost 30 events now just in 3 years of just spread totally across the board, from something really small to the bigger venues, like Nationals rooftop patio or the big Slam, outside of Cold Garden, and then bringing that all together right at the 10th Street Wave. We could see Slam Calgary for the next 5 years follow a very similar format and just make that better and better each year. So that's what's most exciting as we work towards that wave.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I know we've touched on some of the things, and I can't actually remember if I asked this question. I'm having a little bit of a brain fart here, but what makes Calgary a prime location for river surfing?
The river.
Yeah.
Definitely the river. I mean, well, I guess for the most part, all major cities are built off of a river, I assume, for transportation reasons back in the day. Isn't that what happened?
I feel like that's a safe assumption.
For the most part, yeah. I don't really know this type of history, but yeah. So what's really cool is that most cities have these opportunities, but Calgary happened to take advantage of them, and the fact that we had that pretty, natural forming wave right downtown. Not all the cities have that occurrence, so you can't really see that phenomenon that's so accessible. And then obviously it's just people seeing it and then asking questions, and it kind of like expands from there. But over in Montreal and Ottawa, they do have intercity waves, so their cultures are quite strong as well. Okay. But for the most part, over in the West, we would be the only major city, I guess, that has like a big or a good wave like that. Yeah, a proper surfable wave that you can ride for a long, like most of the year.
Yeah, like when you're saying, what is river surfing? Yeah, like people need to see it.
Yeah.
And having that wave in downtown Calgary, that's been the spark that we really need to light this as a bigger fire. Mm-hmm. Where we're going with Slam Festival, I guess, is more of the last question, but it's not out of the question to have a Slam Red Deer or have a Slam Edmonton or Slam Lethbridge under the umbrella of Slam Festival. Mm-hmm. The main goal just being bringing surf culture inland and using that to showcase surfing is possible here. Really, you need a drop in the river and you need enough flow in the river, but that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. But there are many conditions where you could build a river wave, and very few where they exist on their own, just out of pure natural circumstances.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I definitely agree that you have to see it. It's, again, going back to when I saw it last year, it's just it's something that, it's just, I had no idea. I thought it would be something completely different. I thought it was some of the things you had mentioned earlier, but just the cool, yeah. Anyways, I think I've gushed enough about last year's,
That's awesome.
last year's event, but.
That's great, though.
So it might be kind of obvious to some people, but what makes, I guess, river surfing kind of different from ocean surfing?
I mean, the experience overall, the physical experience overall is quite different when you paddle out into an ocean, and depending on what kind of break you're in, you're probably getting pummeled most of the way out there. So you have to get around waves and under waves and over waves, and you're fighting some pretty big forces. And then of course paddling in with the ocean. So this was the part that really messed with my mind. Is that when, say you're ready at the point to catch this wave, maybe you're already out there just like you would be in the river, is you see a wave coming behind you and you paddle, and you're paddling with this movement and you're moving forwards towards the land, and this forward motion really helps with your pop-up, and then suddenly you're standing and surfing, where when you're in the river you're not really moving forward and the water is coming at you, even though technically that's happening in the ocean. You can't tell because you're moving forward towards the land. But yeah, so all this water is rushing at you and it's screaming. Everything's loud and you can't orient yourself. You can't even tell what's happening when you're in there. This is a much more inexperienced point of view, by the way. And then when you go to stand, you don't have that forward motion, and I definitely have. That's one of my biggest challenges personally, is really managing the pop up between the ocean and the river. And if you can pop up in the river, well, you're probably much more likely to have your pop up nailed in the ocean, because that's challenging.
A good way to look at it for maybe the non-surfers out there is sort of looking at rock climbing, when you're climbing the face of a mountain, and just how natural it is and all that, and then climbing in a rock gym or a rock climbing gym. So it's not a perfect analogy, but the difference of a standing wave as opposed to a wave traveling and moving in the ocean, it takes a lot of extra knowledge to get you there. But in river surfing, we line up, there's the wave, figure it out. It doesn't take all that extra knowledge to be able to read the ocean, read swells, even just look at the weather and weather patterns and know if it's going to be a good day, which way the wind is going. All that stuff doesn't influence a standing wave. It works or it doesn't. When it's working, there's a lineup at 10th Street. Yeah. You'll see it. Yeah. If you go by right now, the river's still really high from all the runoff. Yeah. And no one's around. And I'm sure everyone who doesn't understand surfing in a river is like, where's all the surfers at? But yeah, it's like a light switch for river surfing. It's working or it's not. You line up, get in there, you do your thing, and then the next person goes.
Awesome. I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have a preference or?
Yeah. I do enjoy surfing in the ocean myself. I feel like there's a lot of kind of holistic experiences that do exist with river surfing as well, but I guess for me, we're created in the ocean and they still kind of live there, and that's really all the challenges that come with the ocean surfing experience. And because I don't do it very often, it's extremely challenging for me, and it's incredibly humbling. And it's there's all these other dangers, and there's bitey things and pointy things in the water underneath you, and it's even though that's really intimidating, but I personally enjoy that about it. To actually feel the success of spending that time out in the ocean and having a great day surfing, and just spending 70% of the time paddling and not surfing is pretty amazing once you catch those waves. Yeah. And that makes it incredibly rewarding.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I've pulled a lot of river surfers over the years, and I don't think I've heard one say they like river surfing better. Yeah. But when you compare act to act, okay, catching and surfing an ocean wave, catching and surfing a river wave, I don't think river waves stand a chance. Yeah. But when you look at okay, here's a month of you living in Calgary with no ocean waves, or here's a month of you living in Calgary surfing a river wave, which do you prefer? Yeah. I think river surfing, that's where it strives.
Totally.
It really succeeds.
Gain momentum.
Take that. And then the only other thing is the time, the actual surf time. When you're standing on a river wave, you can actually get more surf time than in the ocean. So not to say that this replaces ocean surfing, but for training and things like that, if you can only make 1 or 2 surf trips a year, that river surfing that you're doing in between, when you get to the ocean, you're more prepared and you're more ready, and you get a fuller experience out of that because of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I'm a snowboarder, so what it sounds like is groomed runs versus going into the backcountry.
I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, it's like both are fun, but one is kind of better than the other, but I'll take either. So just maybe, what are a couple things that you're really excited about for this year's Slam Festival?
Oh,
Everything in one place.
that is a really good point. I do love that, and having everything over those 2 days. I mean, our space, our setup is so rad. There's a lot happening on our space, and we've never taken over that much of like our home turf before. So I wouldn't say there's necessarily one singular thing. I am pretty excited about our headlining band, Bombargo. So we're stoked to have those guys in town. They seem like they're just so suiting. They live a similar lifestyle. They're stoked. They actually touch base with us through Instagram, and we definitely have some familiar ties in the board sport industry, which is really awesome. So as single visitor, they get to see motorcycles and they can skate if they want and surf and like check out some break dancing and maybe some singer-songwriters, and then also have a beer and play on the art wall and then also watch music and maybe shop. Like there's a ton of stuff to do in that little space, and that's awesome. It's very exciting.
It's just so cool that like we get to experience that space all the time. Like especially a lot of us work downtown, just leaving and then being at the wave already, or living close to the wave and just like riding a bike with your surfboard on a little surf rack or whatever, and just being able to access it that easily. So like we're gonna have people that are getting off work and like coming downtown and not even know we're there, because again, still people out there that don't know what's going on. They're just gonna stumble into this place. Like I'm super excited for that, and then to be able to hold this space and likely hold the date, everything goes well, is like moving forward, this is really exciting for us.
Awesome. You said you had to go at 7?
Is it 7?
Yes. So just I guess any final things you guys want to throw out there?
Can we plug our festival?
Yeah, plug it super hard.
Plug away. Well, I definitely encourage everyone to check out our lineup of events. So if you go to slamthefestival.com, you're going to see our events page, and you'll also be able to check out all of our singular events. Main event is definitely the key space there, where you're going to see a lot of amazing bands, and it's our only ticketed space. And then the Rocky Mountain Luau is actually a free, accessible event, but we are selling food tickets ASAP. So you can get all of that on the festival website, or follow us on Instagram, Slam Calgary. And also stay tuned. We'll be moving this through our Facebook page, but we're going to be doing some YouTube live videos coming up soon. And they're a really great resource of information. We bring on partners. We talk about what's going on with the festival. So it's probably going to be called something like What's Up Slam. And people can ask questions, and we'll try our best as well to answer them and get the information out there.
For sure. And then any more information on river surfing, albertariversurfing.com. We've got links to Outlier on there for lessons, but also just all the safety information and everything that you need to know to get started.
Cool. And I'll put all those links for your social media and all that in the episode notes, so that people listening, they can just go into the episode notes and find that all.
Cool.
Amazing.
Leave us comments. Like, what do you think of river surfing?
Yeah.
Let
us know.
If you're listening out there, don't be quiet.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys very much for being on the show and talking about Slam and hopefully informing some people about river surfing.
That's great.
Hopefully. Thanks, thank you so much for having us. That was awesome.
If you liked this episode of the podcast, why not leave a review? You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. For up-to-date information on the podcast, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You can find us at Froggy Style Productions. That's Frog, the letter E, Style Productions. For more ways to support the show, visit fsproductions.ca.